This is how to make godlike thumbnails that turn your average videos into machines that print money. I'm sharing everything. The step-by-step process to make banger thumbnails every time, strategies for massive channels that have never been shared before, so that you never make a bad thumbnail again. I'm not your babysitter. If you want to learn how to actually make great thumbnails, you will find it in this video. You just have to stick around long enough. But before we can dive into any of the step-by-step tactics of what you should do, we first need to identify what thumbnails actually work for your target audience. Because the answer to your thumbnail problems are not vague things like making your thumbnail pop. What does that even mean? Every type of thumbnail sets an expectation for the content. With these more screenshot thumbnails, you expect boring, slow, but very informative content. With the more optimized thumbnails, you expect high-paced, fast-edited content. The thumbnail sets the expectation for the content. You could spend 5 to 10 years learning thumbnails yourself, or use this simple study technique to save yourself years of struggle. I call it the clone approach. Before you start fucking around in Photoshop, I want you to find the top channels in your niche and study the crap out of their thumbnails. The objects in them, the phrases they use, the actions they show, the vibe, the style, literally everything. The top channels in your niche have all spent years struggling to pull views. And through that, they've learned the ins and outs of what thumbnails actually work for their audience. So studying their wins and failures are literal cheat codes to success. But before you do that, we have a major problem. Most of you are gonna watch this video, but not actually apply any of this. So let's run through a quick example so you can really see how this process works. When I launched my first channel, I started by finding similar channels and categorizing them into successful channels in my niche and successful channels outside my niche. I then wrote down everything that made their thumbnails work. Unique branding, showing a transformation, very simple backgrounds, humor, bright colors, and then took bits and pieces from each channel to craft a winning thumbnail formula that went on to get me over 60 million views, so I know it works. I really can't overstate how important this step is. The top channels in your niche literally pull millions of views and have figured out everything. If you can just steal a couple things from them, it'll save you from years of shitty thumbnails. Okay, so we've covered finding your audience, but how do you actually use that to make a banger thumbnail? Well, the answer is to separate thumbnails into two different things: the composition and the visual trigger. If you were to take notes, now would be the time, because I've worked with dozens of creators, and this is the biggest mental unlock for them. Starting with el composition. Fancy for thumbnail composition. It's basically how you arrange the elements in your thumbnail to make it pop/grab people's attention. When you're a complete beginner, you don't really have the skills to know why some thumbnails work super well and others just never go anywhere. But the key is to avoid all that by taking compositions of videos that have gone viral before, like this holding item near your eye layout, this concept of person, item, and element in the background, or this simple text plus picture format that's been going viral. I could spend hours yapping about thumbnail angles, the rule of thirds, or design theory, but none of that matters if you just take compositions of videos that have already gone viral. They're proven to have gotten clicks before, and it's the most efficient way to make your thumbnails pop. I want to emphasize, you're not stealing other people's thumbnails, you're stealing how they organize those ideas into a visual. Here's an example of this done well. We have this iconic Ryan Trahan composition, holding a burger in the foreground, him in the midground, and a sign in the background. And here's this guy's version. While the topics are a bit too similar, you can see where he took inspiration and where he made it his own. I've found the best compositions check 3 boxes. They make it really easy to understand what's going on, they have as little elements as possible, and they make the main element take up as much of the thumbnail space as possible. Now, once you have the composition down, your next step is to find your thumbnail's visual trigger. This is the most important part. It's what gets people to actually click the thumbnail. If you want to get big views, you cannot half-ass this step. Most people mess up this step because they research, record, edit the video, and then are completely screwed when the video doesn't include any moments that make for a clickable thumbnail. So the secret is to just reverse the order. You brainstorm the most interesting concept for a thumbnail, and then you make the video around that concept. This is the exact strategy most big channels use. I used to make thumbnails for the channel Rebound, and if you know anything about them, they make some of the best thumbnails on YouTube. And their entire strategy was to just make a great thumbnail and title first, and then find the best content to match it. And the way they did this was by finding these visual triggers. Basically, any visually interesting action or object that creates curiosity. You take that and mix it with a proven composition to make a banger. It's super simple. Here's an example to really cement this for you guys. We have this channel Dopernope that posted this video that got 7 million views. It shows this weird looking puzzle in the thumbnail. And then we have this YouTuber Hafu who has a format called level 1 to level 100 something. We have this proven visual trigger, and then this proven composition of hands holding an object, and we mix it together to make a banger. Okay, so now that we know what visual triggers look like, how do you actually find one? Well, there's a simple trick I use that works every time. Just create a swipe file. Whenever you see a visual that sticks out to you, screenshot it and store it somewhere. I like to use Notion for this. Now, when you need a visual for your next thumbnail, you can just scroll through your swipe file and grab proven visuals that you know will work well. If you do this enough, eventually you get to the point where you don't even have to collect these because your brain has so many examples of viral visual triggers that you can just come up with great ideas on your own. So now we have a strong thumbnail idea created. We know the psychology behind it, the audience it's targeting, and we've mixed a proven composition with a visual trigger. But we still have a big problem. When most creators mess up a thumbnail, it's usually during the execution phase, when they're actually taking the raw photos or designing it in Photoshop. It's really easy to ruin a great idea with poor execution. But here's a really easy way to fix this. A simple design hack Ryan Trahan figured out that's helped him become a thumbnail god. You just use Photoshop as little as possible. Ryan knows that most creators struggle to turn good ideas into great thumbnails, especially when you throw bad Photoshop in the mix. So he tries to get as much of the thumbnail done in the photo shooting phase of the process. The exact expressions, items he's holding, and even the background, all in one raw photo that he just needs to color correct. And when you focus on using as much of the raw image in the thumbnail as possible, it removes a lot of the Photoshop mistakes that adding in new clothes or swapping in a background can cause. Ryan knows that thumbnails need to feel premium. That means design so clean that the viewer instantly knows what matters without thinking. Next up are the boom tests. 3 simple tests you can use to make your thumbnails pop. And no, this isn't just a make thumbnails pop segment. These are actionable tests you can use every time. Because you can have a great thumbnail idea, but if you don't optimize the little details, like its colors, contrast, and sizing, your thumbnail is going to struggle to stand out against the hundreds of other thumbnails on YouTube. Starting with test 1, the zoom test. Slap your thumbnail on Photoshop and zoom out till it's tiny. Can you still easily tell what's going on in that thumbnail? Because most time viewers see a thumbnail, it's either on YouTube's homepage or in the suggested section underneath a video, which means it ends up looking like this or this. So if you make text or actions too small, it'll be too hard to see it in the thumbnail. Next is the blink test. Put your thumbnail next to similar videos in your niche. Okay, now close your eyes, open them, and then close them again. You're looking to see what thumbnail your eyes are pulled to when your eyes open. If it's yours, great. If it's not, you want to use this third test to fix it. I call it the pop test. This is all about trying to maximize the thumbnail's pop using colors, contrast, and depth. Stick with me because this is a literal YouTube cheat code. After you're done designing your thumbnail, I want you to make multiple variations of that concept, tweaking small details like color, background darkness, and depth each time. From there, you can really get an idea for what pops the most. I'm really leaning towards this red color item on a darker background. It just stands out way more. And finally, for the last step, how to test thumbnails properly. Because you've probably noticed that the biggest channels on YouTube are constantly switching their thumbnails. Mr. Beast, Diary of a CEO, Johnny Harris. I've even seen this dude switch the thumbnail on this video 17 different times. The fact of the matter is it takes one banger thumbnail for your video to explode, and you can't always design the perfect thumbnail on your first try. But before you go out and make 80 different thumbnail variations, let's go through the data-backed best way to test thumbnails. You should be making at least 3 strong variations of every thumbnail idea. And no, I don't mean minor tweaks like move the text 3 pixels to the left. I mean meaningful differences. A thumbnail using symbolism, a version that shows results, or one that shows the before and after process. Why? Because you suck at guessing, I do too, everyone does. What you think works as a creator doesn't always line up with what your audience wants to click on. So testing removes the guesswork and replaces it with physical data. And here's the part most creators miss. Once you find your best concept, test it again. Take the best performer, and then you can start tweaking smaller details. Switch the background color, zoom the image in, change some text. This is how you go from making good thumbnails to becoming a thumbnail god. Because creating great thumbnails is a long-term game. You test, you optimize, test, until you find the perfect thumbnail format for your type of content. If you guys have any other questions, I send out weekly newsletters covering YouTube strats, learnings, and you can respond with any questions you have. I'll throw the link in the description. Peace.